Hey, well, thank you for coming out and participating for with Poly Role Models. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I want to say thank you, first of all, for being flexible and being willing to do a video interview because of my beliefs. My name's Tracey Brown. I run the Queer Women of Color Poly group on Facebook. It's a private group. And I'm also a board member of the Relationship Equality Foundation.
Yep.
And I've spoken a few different times at Atlanta Poly Weekend and other conferences.
Yeah, and Atlanta Poly Weekend is where I was lucky enough to meet you and make your acquaintance and
I know, black actors.
black actors, man. All right, well, let's get right to it. How long have you been polyamorous or been practicing polyamory?
Well, see, that's a really hard question for me.
Okay.
It depends on how you define how long have you been polyamorous. For me personally, that's like asking me for how long have I been black. I always been black, so I always been poly. And my poly identity is very tied to my black identity. But if you want to say when I came out as polyamorous, I actually had a come out, go back in the closet, come out kind of experience, which I think a lot of people do. When I was about 19, I got into like my first really serious poly relationship. It was when I was a undergrad student at the University of Hawaii,
Okay.
and that was I had a very, unlike many people, healthy first relationship. And in terms of me being poly in general, I feel like my black identity and the decolonization process in which I go through personally and with my community, I can't strip away my poly identity from that because people of color have been doing polyamory before we even started really talking about it in mainstream white culture.
Fair enough.
So those two things for me are so tied together that when people ask me, "Oh, when did you come out as poly?" I'm always like, "Well, I'm black, and part of me reclaiming my blackness is a part of that is reclaiming polyamory."
All right. All right. So, what does your relationship dynamic currently look like?
Right now, I have a lover. I have one lover, and then I have kink and play partners, and then I have a lot of very close, intimate friendships. Most of them non-sexual. I base my poly identity more off of what people would call what they call it relationship anarchy.
Okay.
I just call it like my life in the scene of The Color Purple, which I'll explain. I'll explain later. But for me, like that's my dynamic right now is pretty much how it looks. And I don't know. Say what my poly dynamic is also really hard because again, it goes back to me being a queer poly woman of color, where I see my relationships as so deep and integral. Black women, especially in this country, have had very close, intimate relationships with each other for a long time and very intimate relationships. And that's a way we've managed to survive. And most people would look at those relationships and define them as polyamorous in modern day times. And so for me, it's like my relationship dynamic is I have a lot of relationships because a lot of people I would include in my poly identity and in my poly network.
Fair. Fair. Well, what aspect of polyamory do you excel at?
Um, I I think that I don't like to really say that I excel at anything really,
Okay.
because as a person, as a human being, you don't really stop growing. And if you say like, "Oh, I excel at something, I'm great at it, I'm awesome at it," you're kind of giving the intention that somehow you're finished growing. And it's a lifelong journey in growing and learning. And so I wouldn't say that I excel at anything in particular because I always have more room to grow and learn.
Yeah.
Um, I only answer I can really give to that is what other people have told me that I've had healthy relationships with, and most people tell me that they really appreciated me being my intersectionality and my poly identity and communicating that. and also connecting with people on multiple levels, and not stripping away, not just looking at a person as, oh, well, you're just queer or you're just black, or you're like looking at all the layers of a person and recognizing that that's going to be in every single moment of our interactions together. Like, anti-racism is going to be a part of our every single day. Anti-transphobia, all that stuff is going to be in every form of our communication. And so I get from what I've gotten from other partners that they like that about me. They like that I'm constantly like, we can't just talk about polyamory. We got to talk about all of it because it's all interconnected. It's all like, nothing's living inside of a vacuum.
Yeah, I feel you. I'm the same way. What aspect of polyamory do you struggle with, though?
Honestly, I would say I struggle with communicating my own needs and boundaries. Okay. I think part of that comes from me as a trauma survivor, but me as a person of color, especially a black woman. I have generational trauma in being a black woman in this country. And so I've been, unfortunately, colonized to not speak my needs and my wants. Black women are kind of taught to be natural caregivers, forcibly or unforcibly, and do a lot of emotional labor. And so I think that's something that I still struggle with in relationships, is that my automatic response is to kind of be like, well, what'll make you happy? What can I do to make you happy? And that's not healthy in a lot of ways, because that means that I'll go back on something, or I'll just kind of go what that person wants. And I try to work hard on that by doing like a lot of mental health work, going to therapy, taking my medication as a person with post-traumatic stress disorder, and really like pushing myself to kind of overcome it as best that I can, and try to be better at expressing my needs and my boundaries, because that can cause conflict in a relationship when those things aren't made.
Yeah. Well, the next question is, how do you address or overcome those struggles? But you kind of just answered that.
I mean, I can elaborate on it. I think that mental health is something that's not really talked about in a healthy way in the overall white poly community. I hear a lot of people say things like, oh, well, if you don't want to get involved with someone with mental health issues, that's fine and that's okay. That's your poly boundary. And I've always pushed against that, because I see it as all people of color have trauma, and all people of color struggle with trauma, and in a way have what's called generational post-traumatic stress disorder. Yeah. So to say I don't want to be with somebody that's got a mental health issue is literally to say I don't want to be with people of color. Like, because if you're going to be with a person of color, we're going to have some kind of strife and struggle and mental health stuff going on, even if we haven't had, stereotypical trauma in our experience. And all that to say is that one of the ways I try to go against that is, one, doing talks about it and bringing up mental health, because sometimes fighting for something can be very healing in itself, fighting for that visibility. And then also doing a lot of digging into myself and looking at myself and being critical of myself and doing self-work. Like, I'm all down for self-care, but self-work is supposed to be hard. You're supposed to struggle with it. It's not going to be pleasant. It's like when a baby grows some teeth, that hurt. They're not happy about it, but they need those teeth to eat food. And so for me, it's like I push myself really hard to do that. And also helping other QT pop with those struggles of not letting themselves be oppressed in relationships where there are these complicated power dynamics.
Okay. In terms of risk-aware or safer sex, what do you and your partners do to protect one another?
So, I mean, currently right now, stereotypically, I don't have like a sexual partner. I mean, I have like a consistent sexual partner, but overall my rules tend to be pretty much, I always wear gloves. I don't go down on anybody that I don't feel a really strong connection with. And if I'm in a relationship with someone and say I start dating someone else, any sort of fluid bonding that happens, I'm always going to inform that person of that. And I also try to make it a point between me and my partner to get tested every 6 months to a year. And if we do have a new sexual partner, getting tested 3 months prior to the last sexual activity with that person. Because most people don't realize that there's like a 3-month window where STDs and STIs aren't detected. And there's also a lot of mythology in the poly community as well as the queer community that queer people, especially queer women, can't pass things on to each other, and that's not true. We can pass bacterial vaginosis to each other, HPV, trick, gonorrhea, all those things can still be passed. So for me, wearing protection like a glove and saying that I'm not going to go down on you is respecting my body and respecting that person's body. And just honestly, just having a lot of communication. For me, that's really the key of it. Now, granted, I've been in abusive relationships. Like I was in a really abusive relationship with a narcissistic abuser. So all those precautions kind of go out the window because you're dealing with somebody who's lying to you all the time. But in general, that's what I try to do is wear gloves, be mindful of fluid bonding. And when I have a partner that I'm fluid bonded with, if I see that I'm getting serious with somebody and want to fluid bond with them, I inform that person and we have a discussion about it.
Fair. All right. What is the worst mistake you've made in your polyamorous history, and how did you rebound from that?
The reality is that we all continually make mistakes.
Yes.
If you're in a place in your poly identity where you don't make mistakes anymore, you're a liar. We're always going to make mistakes. It's a human flaw, and that's what we do. I would say that there have honestly been like multiple mistakes that I've made that I'm not proud of, but I most definitely reflect on them daily. The one major one that I'll give was a few years back. I was already out as poly, and I was in a relationship with someone who was pretty much monogamous, but we were friends first, and they knew I was poly and everything, and we got involved. And a lot of issues with their insecurities and stuff like that of me being poly came up. And so to remedy that, I decided to be like, okay, well, we'll do a hierarchy and you can have veto power, even though I knew I was more a relationship anarchist, even though I knew that's not how I operated.
Yeah.
I didn't want them to feel bad about themselves or that they were less than. And, you know, we fought and we had issues that were outside of polyamory, because sometimes, a lot of times, relationships have issues that have nothing to do with being poly.
Yeah.
Instead of dealing with them, I became resentful. And through my resentment, I rushed into a relationship with someone that I barely knew, who actually wound up becoming, who was a narcissistic abuser. And I actually wound up being in a narcissistically abusive relationship with them for like 3 years.
Wow.
The relationship started deteriorating. The new partner, who I barely knew, and my other partner were constantly fighting. It was like a tug of war between the two of them, a lot of passive aggressive behaviors. And me just not taking care of myself mental health wise enough, and also not being brave enough to be like, you know what, I'm just going to end it with both of y'all because this is not healthy for me. This isn't healthy for y'all. Instead of me doing that, I just kind of like sat back and just was like, oh shit, it's burning and I don't know what to do. And I probably should put water on it, but it's burning and I'm freaking out. And so things just got progressively worse and worse and worse. And eventually wound up happening was that I broke up with the original partner that I had, and I did it in a really ugly and sad way. And just really was like angry and upset with myself. And I did it, and I had so many mixed feelings about it. I tried to make amends. I tried to fix things and communicate. But by this point, like, so much damage had been done.
Yeah.
And I was also in a relationship with 2 other women of color. They both had trauma. So, and all of us were like, had unchecked trauma. and it was just like the perfect storm for shit to go wrong. And the reality was that, looking back, it had little to do with polyamory and more to do with just the vicious dynamics that were happening, just people, me not being honest with myself and not being brave enough to stand up and be like, okay, like, this needs to stop and it's not okay, and just letting myself be a punk, about it and not saying nothing.
Yeah.
And also letting, like, someone who was a narcissistic abuser into the dynamic and just kind of freaking out and really letting myself down and letting my friends down, because, like I said, I have really close emotional relationships with friends, and it just kind of consistently deteriorated. And even though I tried to be accountable and make amends for it, there was really nothing that I could do to fix that, absolve that. The only thing I really could do was remind myself that, like, I can't control the actions of others, but I could control my own actions. And I think about it every day. I don't let myself forget that mistake. I don't, people be like, oh, you got to forgive yourself for mistakes you made. I can hold them accountable for the mistakes that they made individually.
Yeah.
But the reality is I also have to be accountable for the huge mistakes that I made and remind myself every day, this is what you did wrong. This is how you were not being the person that you're supposed to hold yourself to.
Yeah.
And taking really hard and really aggressively into myself and, going to therapy and being like, I fucked up and this is what I did. And, like, I need to make sure that I never, ever do the behaviors I did. The behaviors I did, things I could control ever, ever again. And, I don't think there's a rebound for something like that. I think the rebound is to, when you do a mistake, to never forget it and live the rest of your life analyzing it, picking it apart, and making sure you hold yourself accountable to your failed behaviors.
Yeah, I think that's a legit.
People might say that's really harsh, but it's more effective, honestly. And then instead of saying, like, oh, I'm innocent and I didn't do anything wrong, like, somebody can be, like, I was in an abusive relationship, and I can easily say, like, that person was the abuser and I was the victim. But I also have to look inside of myself of, like, what let me keep this person in my life.
Yeah.
And what pain was I not dealing with to let this keep occurring?
Yeah.
And so I just, honestly, there is no rebound from it. It's thinking about it every day, never letting myself forget it.
All right. Now, the next question is about self-identities, but I feel like you answered that with every question.
Yeah, I mean, like, queer, and then for me, queer, I feel like I lack the words that I need because I speak the language of my oppressors. And so this language is limited. It is gender binary. It is sexually binary. Like, it is so limited that it unfortunately does not afford me the language that I need to express my truest identities. But using my oppressor's language, the only identities that I can kind of connect with are queer, which, again, I feel like as a Black woman, that's just a part of my heritage. Like, I just feel like that's just a part of my heritage, especially after so much research that I've done and so many things that I've read about pre-colonial Black culture and African cultures and stuff. Like, for me, being queer is also reclaiming parts of my Black identity and taking that away from my oppressor. Like, homophobia, transphobia, all those things were introduced by colonization. They did not exist prior to that. And those kind of hatreds. Being Black, for me, is like being part of the Black diaspora, saying that, like, I don't have a home, but I'm a part of a people that created a home inside of ourselves and as a community.
Okay.
And I identify as a woman with an I, so WOMIN, which is also how I spell women in my queer poly women of color group, is with an I. And part of that has to do with me rejecting the gender binary that also came as a part of colonization and of white supremacy. And spelling it with the Y for me is, like, again, it all goes back to, like, reclaiming my Black identity. And relationship anarchist. Again, that's the best words I got with this language. I'm limited with this language.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And those would be like probably the identities that are most important to me in terms of like what most people would ask you, like, what are your identity? Obviously, as a Black woman, I have multiple identities. I'm a sister, I'm a cousin, I'm, a brother to some people,
Yeah.
I'm a comrade to others. Like, that is so many layered identities just within the word Black. So there's 18 million identities. It would be like a long, long list.
All right. Wrapping up with, you have any groups, projects, websites, blogs, anything you're involved in that you want to promote?
I think that it's really important to have more resources out there for queer, trans people of color. We're erased and left on the fringes in the poly community. There's this myth that most poly people are white, and that is not true. That is a false myth. It's just that a lot of us may not necessarily call ourselves poly, and so with that in mind, I created a Facebook group called Queer Poly Women of Color, and it's spelled women with an I. You can look it up on Facebook. The group is only for queer women of color. We do have gender variant people in our group because, again, spelled with an I. So we have gender non-conforming people. We have people that are trans in our group, non-binary, androgynous, and all the different genders that go in between that. But it's a safe haven and support group, really,
Yeah.
for women of color. So, like, it's most definitely not a pickup group. Like, for anybody that's looking at this, it's not a group to be like, oh, let's hook up. It's a group where we really share very deep, layered struggles that we're going through in order to get support from each other. I post videos on there pretty consistently about various different topics that the group brings up and asks me to talk about, and I look and hunt for resources for the group. And we really do talk about a lot of heavy private things. And so it is a safe group. It is a private group. And if you click join, you get vetted, because I have to make for the safety of the group. I'm very hardcore about the safety of the group. And just also to note, part of the reason it's against the group's rules to be hookup is because of the historical sexualization of women of color. So that's why it's an anti-hookup style group.
Fair. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time and being a part of Poly Role Models.
All right. Yeah, no problem.
All right. Have a good night.
All right, you too.